Well, welcome Towson University alumni, students, faculty, staff, and friends. I am Jenna Mills, the Director of Alumni Engagement Programs and a proud 2009 and 2016 graduate of Towson University. Thank you for joining us today to celebrate Black History Month for this presentation, Unsung Heroes in TU's Black History. Joining me today from the TU Alumni Relations team is Steve Rosenfeld. He's the Director of Alumni Communication and Recognition. Today, we are so happy to have alumni from 1975 up to our most recent alumni and even some of our soon-to-be newest Tiger grads joining us. Before I introduce today's speakers, I just want to share a few housekeeping notes. We are recording this session and we will share it with all registrants when it is finalized. It does take a few weeks for it to be edited and the closed captions to be added, but I promise I will email everyone as soon as it is published on our YouTube page. Attendees will remain muted throughout the discussion, but we'd love to hear from you. So please use your chat function in your window and direct your questions to all panelists. We will monitor the questions throughout the session and we will hold a Q&A session at the end of the presentations. I'd now like to introduce our guests for today. Felicity Knox is a 1994 TU graduate and a library associate in the Special Collections and Archives Department in Towson University's Albert S. Cook Library. Felicity began her career at TU in 2000 and joined the Archives Department in 2009. She assists researchers, works with students, writes articles for the Archives blog, and runs the department's social media platforms. Felicity is one of the authors of the book Towson University, The First 150 Years, a photo book celebrating Towson University's founders and rich history in conjunction with the 150th anniversary celebrations of Towson University. Felicity will begin today's discussion by leading us through some of the events and individuals who have helped to push our campus to progress our diversity and inclusion efforts. Followed by Felicity will be Dr. Vernon Hurte, and he will start a discussion on what TU is offering now to support our current students. Dr. Vernon Hurte joined Towson University in 2020 as the Vice President of Student Affairs, bringing more than 18 years of experience in higher education. In his previous role at Iowa State University, he served as the Associate Vice President for Student Affairs and Dean of Students. Dr. Hurte led the efforts there of Multicultural Student Affairs, the Center for LGBTQIA+, Student Success, and the Veterans Center, to name a few. Felicity and Dr. Hurte, thank you so much for joining us today. I am so looking forward to learning more from each of your presentations. Felicity, I'd like to ask you to begin today.
Great, thank you. I'm going to share my screen and we'll hope I'm successful. Okay. Okay. Hi. It's always such an honor to be asked to speak by the Alumni Association. They have been our true partners for many years now. So my thanks to Jenna and Steve for the invitation to talk to you all this afternoon. Before we go forward, I think it's important that I make note of a couple things. First of all, in discussing the history of Black students, faculty, and staff at Towson, I have to make sure that I acknowledge that what I'm sharing is in many ways limited by my own perspective as a white woman. I attended Towson in the 1990s, and while I certainly have seen major changes on this campus in the last 30 years, I recognize that my view of those changes is circumscribed by my own experiences. I hope that by focusing on those who push the school to change, I can celebrate their work, even while I know that there are so many whose names are unknown to us and whose accomplishments are not clear. They are our true unsung heroes. Another thing we have to acknowledge is that our archives don't hold complete records. Until 1994, we didn't have a formal retention policy, which means that archivists had to beg and cajole everyone on campus to send their material to us. Until 2007, we didn't have a full-time archivist and no other staff members in the office. These limitations are only one part of the history. The other part is that archives in general have evolved to recognize that their collecting focus hasn't always been very broad or equitable. On campuses like ours, archivists focused on administrative records. That means the perspective on TU history we have is grounded in the administration's viewpoint and doesn't always reflect the student experience. This digital exhibit from Carnegie Mellon University speaks to a lot of university archives, including ours. And one phrase in the exhibit, "Archives are not neutral," is important to remember when we're looking through our own collections. These collections were created by white administrators to document predominantly white experiences. There was not a lot of focus on underrepresented communities on our campus for many years. For example, in this, oh geez, not that. There. And this is an index of the student newspapers, and it covers 6 years of publication, including the years that the campus became more active. And there are only 11 entries for Black Power, BSU, and Black students. One way we're trying to bridge that gap is with our diversity researchers, and I'll speak a little bit more about that initiative later in this talk. But let's begin talking about those who we do celebrate today. In order to try and do justice to 70 years of Black history at Towson, I'm going to talk about how the outside world impacted what happened here, look at what changes may have been implemented by administration, and then the push from our students to create change on this campus. So real change begins to take place in 1954 with this Supreme Court decision. With this groundbreaking case, years of pressure by Black students to enter whites-only schools, such as the State Teachers College at Towson, were finally rewarded. Just 4 years earlier, a Coppin student named F. Vernon Roberts had petitioned the Maryland State Board of Education to be allowed to transfer to Towson, but he was denied. The board stated that what was available to students at Coppy or Bowie was equitable to what was offered at Towson, and therefore maintained that separate but equal stance, which had been cemented by the 1896 Plessy versus Ferguson decision. This 1954 case changed that ruling. While the Maryland School Board seemed surprised by the Brown versus Board of Education decision, by the fall of 1954, it was clear that Black students would be matriculating the following year. What you might find surprising is that the State Teachers College graduated these 4 Black young women in the spring of 1956. These ladies all already held bachelor's degrees from another institution, but they came to Towson to earn a 5th-year diploma to allow them to become teachers. They are probably TU's first unsung heroes. Their experiences have not been documented, and except for this yearbook page, there's no real record of their attendance. However, many of us do know the names Marvis Barnes and Myra Ann Harris. They entered the same fall as those ladies on the previous slide. However, they began as freshmen, and they are the first 4-year graduates at Towson. Since 2017, teams of students and faculty researchers have come to the archives in the summer to do a deeper dive into the records we hold to try and unearth some of the knowledge about the TU that has gone unknown for too long. And so this letter by Bettina Monroe was brought to light by this work. In 1964, Monroe wrote a letter to the Tower Light, where she explains that activities like sit-ins were necessary to create true progress for the Black community. Her letter is unusual, not just because of what was written or when it was written. More and more articles in the newspaper at this time have begun to speak to the experience of Black students on campus, but because it is signed. The articles and letters we see are often anonymous or sent by groups of students. Bettina Monroe's act of adding her signature and mailbox number is actually an act of bravery. Throughout the 1960s, as part of President Lyndon Johnson's Great Society agenda, reforms were put into place by the federal government to improve access and funding to education throughout the U.S. In 1968, in an effort to begin to meet those goals, Towson administration created a questionnaire that was included as part of the registration process for that fall. It asked for people to identify themselves by race. Part of this was likely a response to the Higher Education Act. However, too few people responded to the survey for it to be considered valid. Other sources that we have say 70 Black students were among the 4,000 total enrolled. This image is from the 1968 Tower Light story reporting about the survey. The language used reflects the language of the time, which today many might find objectionable. This is one of the challenges we have in working with older records. In 1969, Towson hired Julius Chapman to serve as the organizer for a department called the Towson Opportunity Program, or TOP. As reported in the Tower Light article announcing his appointment in 1969, quote, Chapman will assist as a catalyst in recruiting Black students and will coordinate on-campus special services, including reading and writing skills, laboratory, special tutoring, counseling, and general student advising. But Chapman knew that this wasn't the work really needed to retain Black students on Towson's campus. What was needed was social engagement and affirmation, Black administrators and faculty, and a community that embraced Black voices and experiences. As his work continued, he was named the first dean of the newly created Office of Minority Affairs in 1973. And the federal government agreed with Chapman's assessment about integration. Towson and 6 other Maryland state colleges were called on by the Health, Education, and Welfare Department of the U.S. government in the spring of 1969 to address concerns around self-segregated schools. Towson, College Park, Frostburg, and Salisbury had 99% white student bodies, while Coppin, Morgan, Bowie, and a branch of the University of Maryland were all 92% Black. The school administrations voiced concern. They were open to anyone, they said, so how could they help that students essentially self-segregated? Schools, in order to continue to receive federal money, had to demonstrate a willingness to find ways to increase diversity efforts on their campus. They were given 120 days to submit sustainable plans. By the following fall, Towson had managed to increase their enrollment of Black students by 100% due to more aggressive recruiting of Black students. More Black administrators were hired, and the administration admitted that they were going to be counting heavily on Julius Chapman. Prior to Chapman's arrival and the ultimatum from Hugh, Black students on campus had begun to organize and push for more representation. An article titled Black Voices on a White College was published in the Tower Light in 1968. It was written by Frederick D. Harper, who earned his own degree at Edward Waters College, a private historically Black college in Jacksonville, Florida. But his career is steeped in understanding the Black experience in predominantly white colleges. The article was submitted to the Tower Light by the Black Student Union well before our traditional anniversary date of that group's existence. By 1970, the student organization was officially established, but faced inequitable support from the SGA. In the spring of that year, BSU crafted a list of demands and took them directly to the president's office. What were the demands? A room for their organization, just like all the other student organizations had, a telephone, a copier, a filing cabinet with a lock, a desk, chairs, a mailbox, $5,000, and typewriters. Between the administration and Chapman, the BSU was given all that they required. Lawrence Mills, who's pictured here, is the first president of BSU that I could find. Concerns on campus were raised about the need for a student group specifically for Black students. In his reply to how he would support the BSU, President Fisher directed much of the support through the Towson Opportunity Program because, as the Tower Light reported, quote, the college cannot provide segregated facilities for the use of any student group. Funding from the SGA continued to be a struggle for many years. This article in the Tower Light attempted to make the case to the campus about why Black students needed the support of the BSU and why the BSU itself should remain a Black-led entity. Quote, by supporting the BSU, we are allowing Black students to be their own leaders and to work toward objectives that the state, the college, and white students and faculty have failed to meet. The article also talks about the ways the BSU was showing the college how to support the Black community and future Black students. They wanted to study recruitment of both students and faculty members in order to address institutional inequities. They provided campus visiting days for young Black children. They created pamphlets to inform fellow Black students about area resources. The BSU was and is more than just a group of students with like interests. It is a community for Black students dedicated to helping each other navigate a world that didn't always seem ready to welcome them. So 20 years after the passage of Brown v. Board of Education, we finally see some momentum really happening at Towson State College. By 1975, we begin tracking student enrollment by race, so we have a better sense of what campus actually looked like at the time. Out of a total enrollment of 14,335 undergraduate and graduate students, 1,174 of them were Black, which is just 8% of the student body. And the faculty and staff begin showing more diversity, particularly within administration. A yearbook is really just a snapshot into a year, and of course, is itself a product of its creators and their own perspectives. But the folks who made the yearbook for 1975 gave us a picture of a very different Towson than what we had seen throughout the school's previous 109 years. By 1981, the university had met their integration goals as mandated by the government, and so much of the work from the last decade was considered successful. But the number of Black students did not change. As you see in this graph, the small darker line at the bottom marks the number of Black students in relation to total enrollment at the school. And the reality is that Black students who enrolled as freshmen often didn't graduate. Towson had a retention problem. Julius Chapman also left in 1981 to start a job as the Vice President of Academic Affairs at Voorhees College, a historically Black college in South Carolina. He spoke to the Tower Light before his departure and reflected on his 12 years at Towson and where the direction of the school was headed. He said, "Initially, the largest number of Black faculty and administrators were at Towson in the early 1970s. It is stabilized, leveled off, has not kept pace with the growth of the student population. That is a weakness because our students need to see Black people in a variety of settings. They need role models to show them what they have achieved." In 1982, the student body elected the first Black Student Government Association president, Dave Thomas, as part of the Students for Students ticket. At the time, 11% of the student body was Black. It would take another 30 years for 2U to elect its first Black female SGA president, Brandy Hall. Meanwhile, the Office of Minority Affairs was developing new programs to support students, including the creation of SAGE, Students Achieve Goals Through Education, in 1987. By that point, Dr. Camille Clay had been named as the Assistant Vice President of Minority Affairs. SAGE Program Director Raft Woodis had particular insight into what Black students needed at campus. He graduated from Towson State University in 1977 and returned to Towson to become the director of the Tutoring Center before stepping into the role of Program Director for SAGE. When SAGE was created in 1987, the goal of the program was to increase the retention of Black students and to assist them in their academic success. But anyone who has participated in SAGE will tell you that it's more than a tutoring or mentoring program. The students who have been part of SAGE are part of a deeply loved community. It is estimated that Woodis has been involved with the success of almost 12,000 TU students through his work at SAGE. In February of 1989, a letter in the Tower Light appeared addressed to all the Black students at the school. The author, Aaron West, was the president of Iota Phi Theta, the first Black fraternity that had been chartered at Towson State College back in 1973. West wrote about his disappointment with the collections he was able to find in the library, noting a lack of resources that referenced Black voices. He suggested that Black students should start their own library of material, quote, a sort of Afro-American history center, to better understand Black history. West said that he would write again when he saw issues that should be addressed. In the following papers, replies were made to West's letter. Most suggested that West was making a mountain out of a molehill, that there shouldn't be exceptions made for Black students. Another reply from a Black faculty member told West that while the professor agreed with much of what West wrote, he needed to edit his work for any future letters as the spelling and grammar errors were distracting. One person did point out there was already an Afro-American Cultural Center on campus, and in fact had been in existence since the 1970s. What we might think about now, with our 2020 hindsight vision, is that West's letter highlighted the difficulties Black students experienced after the progressive work of the 1970s was considered accomplished. Why wouldn't a prominent person on campus, the president of the oldest Black fraternity at Towson, know about the Afro-American Cultural Center? If he did, then obviously the resources he wanted weren't held there. And if he did not, then the Afro-American Cultural Center was doing a bad job of reaching its core group of students. Why wasn't the library criticized for not having diverse resources? Why would the faculty member not throw his support behind West instead of calling him out for not editing his work? In April of 1989, the campus held a racism forum to talk through some of the problems on campus as a community. West attended and was quoted in the Tower Light as saying, "College is supposed to be a time to have fun as well as a time to learn. It is difficult to have fun or learn when a person has to be preoccupied with racial tensions." In April and May of 1992, after 4 Los Angeles police officers were acquitted in the beating of Rodney King, LA faced 4 days of unrest. At Towson State College, students held multiple protests on campus and marched to the Towson courthouse. These actions were organized by the BSU as well as the Towson State chapter of the NAACP. The NAACP chapter held an emergency meeting and invited administration and faculty to speak. They used the platform as a way to suggest students look beyond the apparent racism in the case, but students were not dissuaded from protesting the injustice they saw happening. I need a drink. I'm sorry. I've been talking for a while. Okay. By the 2000s, Black students were speaking out more forcefully about injustices they saw on campus and across the nation. In 2008, Devin Cooper and Davon Love, members of the Towson debate team, became the first Black team to win the National Cross-Examination Debate Association competition and the first Black team to represent TU. They did it by challenging traditional notions of debate norms. In a Tower Light article written after their win, Love was quoted as saying, "We think that debate in general relies on traditional academic qualifications to make arguments. We pulled out particular practices in the debate community that bolster white supremacy." Cooper and Love were part of a highly visible group of students on campus who pushed for changes both through protests and regular columns in the Tower Light and with their work in the Black Student Union. They also continued to win debates with their innovative style, bringing accolades to the very campus they sought to change. Since leaving Towson, they have formed a nonprofit called Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle, which works to create transformative public policy in Baltimore, focusing on the interests of the Black community. In 2018, LBS received a $10,000 grant from hip-hop artist J. Cole. In 2014, TU again made debate news when Amina Ruffin and Corey Johnson won the CETA National Debate Championships as the first all-Black women's team to do so. One of their coaches, Ignacio Evans, who is here on the left, was part of that previous debate cohort I just mentioned. Johnson, holding the trophy on the right, would help co-lead a rally at TU that eventually met up with students from other area colleges to a large but peaceful protest after the death of Freddie Gray in the spring of 2015. The following fall, TU students participated in a protest event to draw attention to inequities on the campus itself, again co-led by Johnson. Occupy Towson was one of a series of protests staged by Black students at campuses across the country, known collectively as the Student Blackout Movement. At TU, students created a list of 12 demands that they took to the president's office and conducted a sit-in. Among the demands were items like increasing the number of Black faculty members who are tenured or on the tenure track, investing more time in cultural competency work done by committees and departments, and more diversity among members of committees within the university. Then interim president, Dr. Timothy Chandler, signed the demands, and TU has created a website page to track the progress of each item. Current president, Dr. Kim Schatzel, has made diversity, equity, and inclusion a focus of her time at TU. This work by students helped showcase the need for a new office on campus, and in 2017, Dr. Leah Cox was hired as the first vice president for the Office of Inclusion and Institutional Equity. This office is responsible for the Center for Student Diversity, Title IX work around gender discrimination, accessibility efforts, and reporting hate or bias incidents. In 2020, the Office of Inclusion and Institutional Equity released TU's first 5-year diversity strategic plan, A More Inclusive TU Advancing Equity and Diversity. The goal of the plan is to shift perspectives and approaches and strategically place diversity, equity, and inclusion at the core of our mission. In June of 2020, students organized a Black Lives Matter march through Towson, both the school and the town, after the murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery. TU students are determined to help shape their community, both on campus and off, to better serve the needs of everyone. As a staff member, but also as an alum, as a member of this community, their work towards a more inclusive and just world is something I find inspiring, and I am grateful for their determination. We've covered a lot of territory today, and yet it barely scratches the surface of the contributions Black students, staff, and faculty have made to the history of TU. We focused a lot on the big administrative changes and less on the intentional growth of the social aspects of the Black community at TU. For example, we didn't talk about the Black Parents banquet dinners or the creation of the Ebony Lounge. I didn't get a chance to dig into the Towson Freedom School, which began in 2016 as a space for Black students to share uniquely Black experiences. TU's Black history is rich and vibrant, and members of the Black community on campus have compelled the school to push beyond integration and consider more deeply what a truly diverse and equitable campus TU can become. Finally, if you want to get in touch with us in the university archives, here's our email. We are especially interested in any material you might have that could enhance our collections and benefit future researchers. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about this history today, and I look forward to learning much more in the years ahead.
Thank you so much for that, Felicity. As I mentioned, every time I hear you speak, I learn so much, and today is absolutely no different. There are so many things as an alum myself that I just didn't know, and I really appreciate the opportunity to learn. And I'm just looking at some of the comments that have come through from some of our attendees, and I just want you to know that it's very much appreciated that you share your perspective, but also mentioning some people that some of our attendees noticed and knew while they were at Towson. So thank you. It was a really great presentation. Dr. Hurte, if you wanted to go ahead and show your screen now, I am looking forward to learning where and sharing with our alumni and students today where we are headed as a university.
Great. Well, thank you, Jenna. I want to thank you and Stephen for the invitation to be a part of this program today. And thank you so much, Felicity, for kind of walking us through the rich and challenging history that we've had here at Towson University as it relates to the experiences of Black and African American people on campus, whether that is students, faculty, or staff. Again, it's good to be here. I'm Vernon Hurte. I joined Towson University just a year ago as the Vice President for Student Affairs. Now note, first African American Vice President of Student Affairs here at Towson University. And I was really excited about coming to Towson, partly because, you know, I had some experience and some perspective on Towson University, having graduated from another University System of Maryland institution, Bowie State University, which is one of Maryland's HBCUs. And so I remember Towson University of the late 1990s when I came to Maryland as a college student. And when I came to campus in December of 2019 to interview for this role, I was just really energized by the transformation that Towson University has seen. And one of the themes that was clear in Felicity's presentation as we look at the progress over the years is that one, it required a level of intentionality, and it requires continuous intentionality and focused on the experiences of our students, and particularly as we're discussing today, the experiences of our Black and African American students. And, secondly, our students themselves have played a incredible and important role in the progress of the university. When you look at the history of the civil rights movement, it's always been kind of this balance of both agitation and participation, and we see that in the history of Towson University and the leadership of Black students over the years who agitated in very appropriate ways to push Towson University to grow and to be a more diverse and inclusive institution, but also always having a willingness to come to the table to work with the leadership around making those changes and being a part of the solution. And so, we've had a challenging and a really interesting history, but I'm very excited about our future going forward, and again, being very intentional about our work ahead. So I wanted to highlight just over the next few moments a couple things, areas of priority, both for the institution, but for me, as I just celebrated 1 year at Towson and really have gotten a chance to interact with our students and faculty and staff, and have kind of honed in on some areas of priority that I want to share with our alumni community today. So Stephen, you can move us to the next slide. So I wanted to, and this is kind of a mix of both current and future support initiatives that I see as priorities for us to really target the African American and Black student experience on campus, and really focusing in on this idea of holistic student success. And what I mean by that is I believe that our students should have a transformative experience here at Towson University. Many years ago, early in my career, had a student around commencement who I was, just kind of congratulating them, and they talked about this idea of surviving college. And that bothered me then, and it's become a driver for me. That I think all of our students, and particularly as we talk today, our Black and African American students should thrive, should flourish here at Towson University. And so all of these areas of focus and initiatives are really built around helping our students thrive and flourish. And so I'll start with our enrollment efforts. Towson University has truly become a much more diverse and inclusive campus community. Right now, African American students comprise about 24% of our overall student population. When you look at the undergraduate student population specifically, African Americans make up 26%. So, we have grown a lot, but we have a lot of space to be able to grow. And so, our goal is really to extend our reach. And the one area of focus that we're really getting preparing to hone in is really to give greater focus to Baltimore City in particular. President Schatzel has included as a part of her vision, continuing to have Towson University grow and develop as the anchor institution for Baltimore. But as we grow, we are the second largest institution in the state. We are the fastest growing in the state. And so, we want to really extend our reach and really focus in again on the Baltimore City community, working with organizations like the College Bound Foundation, who's doing incredible work to ensure that students within the city have access to college experiences. And so partnering with organizations like that to make sure that we are providing opportunity, that we're connecting the Towson University experience with some of the best and brightest within the Baltimore City community, but really looking across the state and recognizing that our reach overall is broadening. And so we want to really make sure that we're connecting the Towson University experience to our students of color all across the state. And so you'll see over the coming years much more of an aggressive approach towards both connecting students to the Towson University community, but really when you look at this next level, next focus around academic success, all of the things that are required to help students be successful. What we know is that there are some general things that are required for all students to be successful. When we think about specific groups on campus, the research best practices inform our approaches around recognizing what are some of the unique elements of the experience, the unique types of support that really make a difference for various different groups. And so we talk about the SAGE program, Students Achieve Goals Through Education, which was led for 4 decades by the outstanding leadership of Ralph Woodis, and now led by Tammy King Kelly as the interim director of the Student Success Programs Office, continuing to invest in SAGE so that we can continue to grow it, but also figure out how we can potentially take that model and invest it in other areas with other groups across campus. And so Raft created kind of an outstanding kind of foundation of work and impact that, right before he retired, he and I were talking about how do we continue to build on that work. And so I'm excited about, with the SAGE program in particular, how do we continue to build on the outstanding work and expand that work so that even more students are impacted by that experience. Increasing the 4-year graduation rate for all students is a high priority for our provost, Melanie Perot. And so, but again, looking at different populations on campus, how do we target and understand the experiences in a way that we are creating the right supports, the right scaffolding. And we know for African-American students, mentoring, we know having a positive campus climate, having a sense of belonging and connection to the campus are all important elements. And so everything that we're working to build going forward are targeting that academic success and making sure that from tutoring programs to academic enrichment. And what I mean by academic enrichment, which is different from academic support, is that we know that there are some students across campus who may require various different support needs. But we also have students who are high achieving. And so academic enrichment is how do we take them from to the next level in terms of their academic engagement and academic experiences, whether it's undergraduate research and other intellectual activities that allow them to grow and develop even more. And so the 4-year graduation rate is an area of focus for us. Towson University is an institution that, unlike many institutions, don't have what we call an achievement gap. And so our students of color, including our African-American students, statistically are graduating at the same rate as our majority students on campus. But we're really wanting to target that 4-year graduation rate because when we think about the return on investment for our students, 5 years is great, 6 years is great. We want to get you to graduation, but 4-year, it allows our students to be 1-2 years further within their professional goals and 1-2 years, closer to professional opportunities after graduation. And so we really want to target that 4-year graduation rate. One of the areas that's been a part of my scholarship and my work throughout my 20 years of higher education has been around Black male achievement. I was really fortunate. I went to an institution that really invested in my success as a undergraduate student, that continued on as a graduate student. So when I look at my experience and even the experiences of many Black male leaders within higher education, there are common threads that we recognize were a part of our successful growth and development. And so how do we take those elements and ensure that our current students are experiencing those? And so in the next few months, we'll be creating a work group within the Division of Student Affairs that's actually going to be focused in on some of our efforts around Black male achievement in particular. I have the privilege of serving as advisor for the Brotherhood, which is our kind of African-American male coalition student organization on campus. And those young men have they're brilliant, and their voices have really um, played an important role in helping me to envision our work going forward, and giving me some real insight on where the areas of opportunities for our growth. And then lastly, in academic success, continuing to focus in on scholarship funding, and that being a major priority for our fundraising efforts, so that as we attract those students, that they have the resources to be able to continue going forward. Next slide. Leadership development. One of the areas that we're looking to focus in on, and I want to shout out our Greek Life office, who has been keenly engaged in this work, as we're seeing growth and the development of our NPHC chapters on campus. Our fraternity and sorority chapters are part of the National Panhellenic Council. I happen to be a member of NPHC fraternity, and so I know the impact, again, that's had on my life. I had on my sense of connection to campus, and sense of connection and community, and even beyond college, being a part of a powerful, successful network. And so we want to continue to support the growth and development of our NPHC chapters, and find ways to be able to celebrate. So one of the new initiatives that we started is for our chapters, as they come up on having milestone anniversaries, to offer a vice president citation, just to recognize the important role that these chapters have had on the progress of Towson University overall, but to ensure that we're connecting those chapters, as we should be for all of our chapters, to national opportunities for network, national opportunities for growth and development. So really happy with the direction that our Greek Life staff is going there. And then thinking about the holistic advising of our student organizations, by student activities in the Center for Student Diversity, which is a part of OIIE. And so, we want to make sure that we're always informed by the things that we learn from Dean Chapman, the things we learn from Ralph Woodis, about the whole experience and the importance of mentorship, the importance of advising, and continuing to invest in that work. And so, that continues to be a key, and going forward, even more of a priority, not just for our work in student affairs, but this is an area of priority for President Schatzel as a part of her priorities in the Towson University strategic plan. Experiences for postgraduate success. We don't want our students just to come to Towson University. We want them to come, have a phenomenal experience, graduate, and move on to the great opportunities post-graduation. So scholarships for unpaid internships, that's an area of focus and priority for me in my fundraising efforts in particular, as we know that participating in internships play an important role. And many of our students, particularly our Black and African American students, are often unable to take advantage of these opportunities, not that they're because they're not prepared, but it's because of socioeconomic barriers that don't allow them to take on a professional development experience and a work experience that is unpaid. And so by providing scholarships and grants for students to be able to take advantage of these unpaid internships, it meets the economic needs for our students, as well as ensuring that they're not missing out on important opportunities that will set them up for success after graduation. And then study abroad participation. We know, and it's a goal for all of our students to have the opportunity to study abroad. And once we get past the pandemic, we want to make sure that, particularly our students of color and our African American students in particular, we want to ensure that we see the numbers and participation growing. There's so many more financial resources that are available to support study abroad today than it was even 10 years ago. So we want to make sure we connect those resources to our students and encouraging them around the benefits of studying abroad. And then lastly, thinking about just the overall campus climate. We mentioned the creation earlier. Felicity mentioned the Office of Inclusion and Institutional Equity, which is a major step forward and under Dr. Cox's leadership, establishing the university's first diversity and inclusion strategic plan. I would, encourage you to take a look at that plan. A couple of things that I would highlight, and again, it goes back to some of the things that Dean Chapman was advocating for, many years ago. One, around, making sure that we're taking a regular assessment of our campus climate. Making sure that we're actually making documented progress in making Towson University a more inclusive and equitable campus community. Then recruitment and retention of faculty of color is an important priority. We know that for student success, and that's all students, having the opportunity to engage with, to be mentored by faculty who come from various different backgrounds. This isn't important just for students of color. This is important for all students. And so the more we are able to recruit and retain faculty of color here at Towson University, the more we're going to be able to support the broader success of all of our students. So these are some of the current and future support initiatives that I want to go back to that word intentionality, that we're being intentional about investing in, focusing in, because we know it's going to make a difference in continuing to increase the success, increase the retention, the enrollment of our Black and African American students here at Towson University, but also knowing that all of these ingredients will help bolster the success of all of our students here at Towson. So I want to thank Jenna and Stephen again for the opportunity to share.
Thank you, Dr. Hurte. Just to remind everyone who's with us today, please go ahead and use the chat function if you do have any questions for Dr. Hurte or Felicity. Just a few shout outs that have come in along the way. We do have some members, some previous presidents from the BSU represented on the call today, as well as a treasurer and the Towson Black Alumni Alliance, some executive members from the Towson Black Alumni Alliance who are happy to help the university and Dr. Hurte anything with your efforts along the way. And we can connect you with that alliance. So I do know, I'm waiting to see if any questions do come in. It was a very informative presentation on both ends. I do know, Dr. Hurte, we talked about it a little bit, that there's one issue that the university is working on right now, and that's renaming some of the dorms on campus. I didn't know if there was an opportunity for you to share just where we are in the process right now.
Sure, thanks, Jenna. So yes, last summer, in response to the Student Governments Association's request to consider and review the names of two of our residence halls, Peka House and Peka House and Carroll Hall, who was named over about 10, 15 years ago as a part of our West Village community. And this has been an issue of advocacy for our students for a number of years. President Schatzel named a committee to review the names of those organizations, those residence halls. I've been privileged to chair that group, and we have been working very hard over this year to do a thorough review of those names, and I anticipate we'll have more information and more updates to the campus. It is a confidential process, so I can't share many details, but the process is ongoing. The committee has been very serious about this work. Really happy that we had an alumni member as well as a part of that committee. And so just keep your eyes open and ears open for more information and this before the year's out. Sure.
Thank you. So we have a few questions that have come through, and if it's okay with you, I'm just going to pose them to both of you. However, Dr. Hurte, I think this one's probably more directed to you. But the question is, how is Towson University supporting the Black Student Union as well as the Ebony Lounge now?
Sure, great questions. And so under Dr. Cox's division, the Black Student Union is advised through the Center for Student Diversity. We actually have a council of that's made up of the leaders of all of our kind of African American, Black identified student organizations on campus. Provides a space for them to kind of talk and kind of strategize among one another, but also a space for campus leadership to be able to meet with campus leaders to talk about various different issues on campus. I'll note that you all are probably aware that we're in the process of completing a renovation for the new union. And so we will be opening the new union, which includes new space for SAGE, new space for the Center for Student Diversity and the organizations that are affiliated with those offices. So we're really excited about that. We'll have about 95% of the new union open this fall, and then we'll complete the last phase of that next summer and be fully open for fall 2022. So, you know, the changes and the enhancements of the new union is really going to be a positive impact for all of our student organizations, but again, particularly for many of our Black and African American identified student organizations who are affiliated with the offices who have expanded space there.
Well, I know we are as well looking forward to that, the conclusion of that expansion. It is a beautiful building. So if you haven't been back to campus, of course, don't come right now, but come when the building's open. I'm sure we'll have plenty of events when it is open, and maybe even an open house along the way for alumni to come back and see the completion. So another event that's come through, it's a little bit lengthy, so just bear with me, but given the recent events and fatal interactions with the young Black males and females with law enforcement, are there any initiatives at Towson University plan to discuss and prepare our young students with the tools to deal with law enforcement so there's more of a positive interaction? And also, Towson University has its own police department on campus. Has there been any training to help reduce police biases with our own department?
Absolutely. So under the direction of Joe Herring, who is our Director of Public Safety and Chief of Police, our TU Police Department has continuously been engaged in training as it relates to community policing. They've just relaunched a new group on campus of officers that's specifically focused on engaging with our populations of color on campus. And so this was a topic that really came up last summer through the leadership of the Student Government Association, and really opened the door for some continued efforts to, you know, just strengthen both the relationship between Towson University Police Department and students. And one of the things that's been a really significant area of growth there has been, you know, we're up in Baltimore County. And so historically, Baltimore County Police have played a primary role in terms of public safety throughout the county, including campus. But Towson University's police department has really taken on much of that responsibility. And so it allowed us to really set the right type of tone and the relationship that we want between our students and law enforcement. And so continuing that training, continuing to create space for students to be able to share their experiences, and following up on moments when, you know, we don't hit the mark, and moments where students may have challenging experiences, to make sure that we are responding appropriately to those and making the necessary changes that we need so that students can be able to thrive in our community going forward.
Great. Thank you so much for answering those questions. So I think at this point in time, I'm not seeing any more questions come through. We have received quite an overwhelming response, just thanking our presenters for their time and efforts today. So thank you again for participating with us and being a part of this discussion. This does conclude the end of our presentation today. I have really learned a whole lot about Towson's history and just what we're doing to move forward and support our students from marginalized communities. It's been very insightful, and I hope it has been for our other attendees as well. I would like to remind you that if you do have some history you would like to share with the university, please reach out to us, let me know, and I can connect you with Felicity and share the website or her email address with you so you can connect with her and let her know about what happened while you were on campus. I'd like to take a moment to remind our attendees that in addition to the scholarships that Dr. Hurte mentioned earlier in this presentation, we are also raising money for our TU Student Emergency and Food Insecurity Fund. Every gift counts and makes a difference no matter the size. These gifts go directly to support our students who are experiencing challenges in their lives, especially right now with remote learning. The funds can help provide students with internet access, laptops, supplies, web cameras, rent, really food, anything that they're needed. And it also helps, it will continue to help once we're back in person for in-person learning. You can make a gift today by clicking the link in your chat box. It will pop up here momentarily. We do hope you can join us for some other upcoming events. On Thursday, the Maryland Science Center and alumnus Mark Potter will join us for a virtual presentation to share how you can use organizations in your community and educational experiences to parallel classroom work. Then on March 9th, we have a panel of TU alumni, that's TU alumni who are females, women. They'll be sharing their experience as women in the leadership positions. We will then be hosting a fun St. Patrick's Day themed mixology class on March 11th. You can learn more and register for all of these events at alumni.towson.edu. Make sure you follow the TU Alumni Association on our social media channels and on Tiger Connect, our alumni community. If you are interested, there is a Towson Black Alumni Alliance. You can join that alliance right from Tiger Connect as well, and we do encourage you to do that. They host a variety of events throughout the year. These details are now posted in your chat window and in your video now. Thank you so much for joining us, and we do hope you can join us for another event in the future. Have a great day.